koutou, and welcome to another episode of South Pacific Muscle. Today we've got the big boys on. We've got the boys of New Zealand arm wrestling, and it's something that I know very little about, so expect lots of dumb questions from me, but there'll be questions that everyone wants to know. So we've got Maateiwarangi and Aron joining us today. So welcome on board, guys. Awesome to have you here.
Chiba.
Hello, thank you.
Been a long time, Aron.
I know, it's been years. Back on the North Shore, Wolf's Gym.
Back when we were both skinny little bodybuilders, yeah, back in the day. Hey,
is that when you were sponsored by Nitratech?
Yeah, bro. Fuck that. way back. Hey, I want to bring up a picture first, so just bear with me.
Yep.
You probably knew that was coming. So when people think about arm wrestling, you know, you think of Dennis Siplinkoff and the man
Jeff
has
Dave.
got, and Jeff Dave, yeah, I mean, Dennis has got biceps on his fingers. I don't know what those fingers are. And Jeff, if you look at as a child, he had forearms like jeepers. I mean, I still probably have bigger forearms when he was born than I've got. Any weird genetic mutations that you boys share that allow you to be so good at what you do?
For a little bit there, I thought that I did. I think that I do in a certain way, like my wrist. So the thumb muscle actually wraps around on top of the forearm, and my one's quite enlarged. Yeah.
Oh, God. What about you, Aron?
Oh, I wish I was as strong as Dennis Siplinkoff, but I'll just keep lifting my weights in the gym. One day I'll get there. But it's a new skill for me, the arm wrestling. I haven't been doing it as long as the Beast, but yeah, I'm trying to catch it. How long have you been going? You've been going like, what, 12 years?
Oh, no, mate, no. So I've been New Zealand champ for 9 years, just as of a couple of weeks ago. Oh, look at that photo.
Didn't wait long to drop that name. Oh, true.
What a photo. Love that photo. Yeah. Hey, look.
Best part about that photo is my mum's in the background cracking up, recording. It's the first time she's seen me arm wrestle.
Gold. Hey, I'm gonna ask you to start off with the Beast, but do you want to give us your sort of take on, you know, for someone that doesn't know anything about arm wrestling, you know, we probably think about when we used to arm wrestle our mates, or arm wrestling at the pub when you're on the piss, or
over the top with Stallone.
Over the top with Stallone.
I absolutely hate that movie, man.
I bet, bro. It's probably really cliche and full of errors. But, you know, for those that don't know about arm wrestling, what is competitive arm wrestling? What does it look like to, you know, compete? What does a typical competition entail?
It's completely different from what your normal person thinks arm wrestling is. It is it changes your whole dynamics of arm wrestling. You know, from when you're a kid, you think it's just side arm on arm, and it's once you start learning the techniques and everything, you realize how dangerous that type of arm wrestling is.
Because you get the I remember World's Strongest Man way back, and it was Nathan Jones from Australia, who's about 6'10", and he's a fucking unit. And he was arm wrestling Magnus Vermagnuson, who sorry, not Magnus Samuelsson from memory, and spiral fractured humerus, obviously. And fuck, I'll never remember that sound. I kind of went, oh, and you see him drop out of the way. So it always kind of, to me, I was always quite scared of arm wrestling, and people said, do you want to arm wrestle? I said, no, not into that. I don't do arm wrestling because I didn't have the condition for it, and the bone obviously be weaker than the muscle. And, you know, is that something, you know, when people arm wrestle, like you know, the boys at the pub have an arm wrestle, is that one of the dangers of adopting no technique and just trying to muscle your way through it?
Was this before or after learning arm wrestling?
Oh, so, just for someone that you know, lifts a few weights and the boys want to have an arm wrestle, like having no technique. If someone like that went up against someone that was a lot stronger than them or had some technique, would they put themselves in a pretty vulnerable position?
It'll be safer if someone that didn't know arm wrestled someone that had a little bit of technique, because that person that had a bit of technique would be able to maneuver their arm away from the break arm position.
Ah, gotcha. What Aaron, I know you're a physio, so can you explain to us what is the break arm position?
What is the break arm position? I guess that's when you have some rotational kind of shear force, and you're obviously holding your elbow tight, and there's no movement going through there, so something's got to give, and it usually gives just above the elbow, the distal humerus, like you said, the spiral fracture. So that's something that a lot of arm wrestlers are quite big on, is safety. So I know for myself, I started 3 or 4 years ago. I trained with the Bay of Power here in the Bay of Plenty, and I know the senior guys in the club, they're real big on safety. So they take the newcomers under their wing and teach them the basics of technique, and kind of encourage them when it's safe to compete. It's very rare for a newcomer just to turn up and compete for that reason. It's really, we really have a big emphasis on safety. We don't want anyone breaking their arm.
I was probably pretty lucky I tore a rotator cuff instead of breaking my arm then.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. I was in an arm wrestle.
Yeah.
Oh,
actually, embarrassingly enough, arm wrestling a machine in an arcade. So.
Oh. Okay.
The break arm position is like this. So if you're like this, and a lot of people push like that, it just goes side. And once you go to the side, and a lot of them tend to like look away from their arm, so they tend to look away, and then in just doing that, you can feel the pressure right in here. You always need to try and stay your head behind your hand. Don't let your hand go past your head.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So, if I was walking into a competition as a spectator, what would I see? What is the sort of format for a typical arm wrestling competition? Is it, best of 3, or how does the competition run?
Yeah, depending on the format. So if you got a super match, it'd be the best out of 3, best out of 5 between you and another person, or you can do knockout rounds with depending on how many people show up. But if it's a knockout round, you get two chances and you're out, and you make your way through A class, B class, depending on which one you fall into.
And explain how the table works, because there's just rules around. You can maneuver. I understand you can maneuver your body any way you like, as long as you keep your elbow in contact with the table and your hand on the handle. Is that?
Yeah. So there's a pad. There's an elbow pad.
Yeah.
About the size of maybe just a bit like that, and you can move around on that as long as the elbow stays on it. Your hand has to stay. Your other hand has to stay in contact with the pin that's on the side of the table. If you tend to let go, the ref won't foul you. They'll tell you to put your hand back up. If your elbow comes up off the pad or comes off the back, front, side, that's foul, depending again on the federation that you're arm wrestling under. Some federations around the world have different rules. So like you might elbow foul, and that could be a running foul. So you can carry on with the match, but you have to win to get a restart.
Do you guys have your hands tied at all, or are they? Because I see like Aaron, your hand was kind of quite like when you.
If you have a look in that photo that you had of me and Aaron, he was trying to run away. He was trying to flip.
Bit of cardio never hurt, man.
So I grabbed onto his fingers, and I just held on to them so he wouldn't slip out.
Oh God! Hey,
if he slipped out, that's when we get strapped up.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, what's the weight divisions for? Because you're obviously, I've got to pick. You've got to be 150 plus. and Aaron, you'd be still sitting around the 100 and somewhere, it's over there somewhere.
Yeah, I usually put on weight for the competition. So the big fella and I were in the heavyweight, super heavyweights. So normally that's anything over 105. Sometimes it's over 100. It's around that, over 100, 105, and that's open weight. So I normally cruise around 108, 109 kilos, and I put weight on for a competition. So I try and compete at about 115. I don't like being that heavy, so I take it off after. But yeah, I just find my strength is real good at that weight.
No thoughts of when you've got a 9-time New Zealand champion in the heavy super heavies of cutting weight and dropping under a class?
Not at all. Not at all. It's not really a case of the lighter weight is a harder division, not by any stretch. It's just a different skill set. There's some really explosive, strong fellas in there who would give any heavyweight super heavyweight a good hoon as well. It's just a different kind of strategy. But for me, the big fella right there, he's the target. So no, I'm not dropping weight. I'll get him.
If you, he'll say it for many years. Hey, have you been the 9-time New Zealand champion? Have you lost any matches in New Zealand to New Zealand competitors, or you got a?
The last time I lost a match in New Zealand was 9 years ago, and that was to our the New Zealand Armwrestling president, Anton. Yeah, he was the last person to beat me, and that was 9 years ago.
Far out. That's a mean winning streak, bro. I'm suitably impressed, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, so a lot of guys would look at, you know, a big guy in the gym, bodybuilder, powerlifter, you know, strength athlete of some kind, a big rugby player, and go, that guy would be a great arm wrestler. If someone came in that just had a real base of you know, brute strength, how would they go against your average arm wrestler? Would they just get taken apart?
I've come across some people like does no sports whatsoever, and there's one guy I can think of a few years ago. I was doing a fundraiser outside Bunnings, and I had my arm wrestling table there, and we had sausage sizzles going and whatnot. And I saw this guy walking up, and I looked at my mate. I was like, man, this fella, you know, this fella's bringing something with him. I can sort of feel it. And he came up, and he was like, oh, what is this? And oh, it's an arm wrestling table. He was like, oh, I like arm wrestling. I put my bloody arm up, and I looked at one of my mates. I was like, I don't think this is going to go too well for me. And I was like, as soon as he grabbed my hand, so Dennis Siplinkov's hand, that would have had to be the closest I've ever felt to something that felt like Dennis's hand. He grabbed my hand, and I couldn't see my hand after that. Like, his hand was so big, his fingers were so thick. Like, he just went like this, and I was like, oh my God, you know, like, I couldn't pronate out.
Yeah.
So the only thing I had to do was hold him and just stay tight and let him wear himself out.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, man, did you want to come and train? He was like, no, I'll probably never do this ever again. I was like,
oh, I know that feeling though, bro, because I shook Bill Kazmai's hand from World's Strongest Man, and it was like a paw, and it's like shaking someone's hand with a softball mitt on, and these big thick sausage fingers, and you know, as soon as you like come into contact with their hand, you kind of like, you know, there's something. Yeah. Hey, do you want to talk us through just some real basic techniques, Aaron? Just for, you know, real quick ones, just for the listeners, what sort of things you do or attempt to do, strategies you use in your matches?
Yeah, so in New Zealand, you kind of get to know the techniques that some of the guys on the circuit kind of use. So you kind of are aware of what you're coming up against. And in arm wrestling, I don't know how to put a percentage on it, but it's a massive percentage for the technique and the skill and the speed that you execute your movement. So there's a few main techniques that people may have heard of. The top roll being one very popular one, which I assume is what the movie title Over the Top was about, I guess. There's a hook, there's a press, and a king's move. Those are kind of the main ones. So the top roll, the idea of the top roll is you use, it's like a pronation of the wrist mixed with a row, mixed with taking them down to the side. So if you're looking at the pad, I kind of want to draw a letter J with my elbow. That's the path I'm going to take them down in. So that's, I guess, the basis of a top roll. I like using top rolls. So I train a lot for top rolls in the gym. So that kind of translates to a lot of pronation, a lot of rowing, a lot of isometric bicep, and a lot of speed work as well. Another one I use, which is in that photo there, the one where I was running away, was a king's move. And so that's, for me, that's a very comfortable move. And the idea behind a king's move is to try and bleed them out, I guess, kind of like an anaconda constricting its prey. You kind of want to drop down under the table, and I hang off my wrist and sit there hoping that the other fella's going to try and burn. And then when you feel the power going, the idea is you pop back and I press him. I had quite a couple of long matches with a guy, Charles, at Nationals a couple of weeks ago. And that was a good example of how to use a king's move. You know, I dropped down under the table, and this fella's got a wicked hand, and he's a strong fella. And I thought I was going to burn out first. But then it's like catching a fish. You feel the bites on the rod, you feel the lack of bites on his arm, and you pop up. And I dropped into a press. So that's when I dropped my shoulder in and tricep press like this. You drop your shoulder in and tricep press, one quick movement. Yeah, that's those are the movements I tend to use. The other one that I mentioned earlier was the hook. I don't hook. I hate hooking. It doesn't feel comfortable. But the idea, I guess, with that is you're utilizing a bit more supination of the wrist and dragging them down and towards your corner. Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask about a hook because, like I said, I didn't do it. But those are kind of your main techniques, and you kind of want to pick your techniques based on what you think the other guy is going to do. And how they're put together. Like a taller guy has a longer forearm. They've got better leverage for dropping over the top in a top roll, whereas a shorter guy will tend to, because he lacks that height, will tend to hook. That's not a rule, but it's a generalization. There are guys who are very good at multiple techniques and who can change from one to another, and that makes them pretty dangerous. It's hard to predict what they're going to do.
How many guys are consistently on the New Zealand circuit?
Altogether, how many did we have at Nationals?
Yeah, it was actually quite a bit. If you're talking about like in all categories, weight categories, there's got to be about 50 to 60 competitors.
Wow, cool. Oh, that'll be exciting.
That's growing. That's growing from when I last saw you was it Big Boys Toys?
Oh, probably it was years ago, man.
Man, they're back then, 10, 15 people.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
Wow.
We're up to about 50 to 60 people. I've got a club here in Hamilton, man, and we're up to about 10 people.
Nice. So if newbies want to kind of get into the sport, they'd get in contact with you in Hamilton if they're a Waikato arm wrestler.
Tell them to join the New Zealand Armwrestling page.
Yep. Was it on Facebook or Insta?
On Facebook,
Cool.
The New Zealand Armwrestling page, and that is the base ground where they can contact people, find out where a lot of arm wrestlers are. Or there's actually an app now called Armbet. It's an arm wrestling locator.
Holy shit! That's pretty cool.
If you were to download Armbet, you put you'll see if there's any arm wrestlers around your area that have
Like a Tinder for arm wrestlers.
Tinder for yeah, I'll say.
Swipe right if you want to arm wrestle.
Yeah, I finally think if you popped up, I'd be going, no, I'm not swiping right.
I jumped on the app because you can challenge people. I jumped on the app and I challenged every single person in New Zealand.
No one came back to you. Hey, what sort of characteristics would say someone who was thinking about getting into it, what would give them a sort of a good background or a good basis? Like if I was a complete newbie and kind of, I wouldn't mind giving this a go, what would make me think that I might be good at it? What sort of physical characteristics or lever lengths or background and strength?
Physical characteristics. Yeah, I sort of base off
height helps.
Yeah, height. For me, it's the hand. If that hand is strong, if that wrist is strong, yeah, that's something we can work off. If you're, I've based a couple of pullers off their mentality, and they've done extremely well. Like their driven force is far outweighed their physical attributes when they first started.
Because you put up a post, and I think it was only today or last couple of days, and you said that, I saw you say that, your size obviously helps, but your main driver was hard mahi, and you took your dad as an example of someone who was a really hard worker, and you've taken on that work ethic. So how much of it is work ethic and mental strength over natural ability to start with?
It really comes down to the person, It really does. So, for me, there's two pullers in my club. One of them came into it a little bit lost in life, and I've told him my testimony of how arm wrestling helped me. It helped me to find a pathway, and I sort of encouraged him to come along, to a training, and his determination from his first training to now, he's excelled far beyond the time he's been arm wrestling. There's another guy here whose drive is a better lifestyle. Yep. He's put on a bit of weight, so you can see that it's almost secondary. Arm wrestling's almost secondary to the driving point of what they actually want out of it. Cool. Once you put them two together, man, it becomes quite a special force, and that's where I started arm wrestling from there. I started arm wrestling as I enjoyed it, and it actually started helping me find a pathway, giving me something to do, and next thing I know, I'm sitting here on a podcast talking to you about it.
Because I know that you've competed around the world, so arm wrestling's taken you places that you probably would have never been, and met people who never had a chance to mix with. So what I'm going to do is ask her, just tell us, the nine-time New Zealand arm wrestling champ. Where did he come from? Where did he start? What was his background? And talk us through that competition history, man. Tell us about it.
So I was always arm wrestling at school, I'm just arm wrestling the bros and stuff, and it was just a fun thing, You never thought that it could go past that. About a year later, I'm in my lounge watching Shane Cameron versus Ahunanya, Friday the 13th, and this was when Shane Cameron got demolished, man. He got absolutely smashed. After that fight, there was an arm wrestling doco on called Pulling John. Yep. And I was like, wow, completely amazed from the first pop up of arm wrestling documentary. I was like, what the hell? Man, I sat there with my eyes glued to that TV, just soaking it all in. Like, man, I am 100% into this. Yeah, and I told my old man, I looked at him, I was like, man, I'm gonna take this on. I did not follow it through whatsoever after that. I just carried on with my life, and I ended up moving into a whare with my partner, with the kid's mum at the time, and freedom from moving out of home. So there was a lot of alcohol, a lot of parties, and I sort of carried that on a bit too much, and started going out clubbing and arm wrestling people, and then one of the DJs there, he actually knew a bit about arm wrestling, and I was cleaning people up, man. I was, pub wrestling, just didn't really think, that, again, I didn't think it would go further than that. The DJ came up, man, he smoked me like nothing. I was like, far out. You might know him. You remember Monty Corbett? He was a bit of a powerlifter. He did powerlifting and bodybuilding.
Name rings a bell.
He knew some technique, and we ended up going up to Auckland for training. And I was like, what? It's an actual sport. He was like, yeah. Went up, did some training, and then I just knew straight away that, yeah, I'm going to take this on. It sort of changed my lifestyle quite dramatically. There was a lot of other things happening in the background while I was finding the sport. But going from where I was before I started to hopping on a plane to Poland, man, like what? Even now I still think that it's like, man, I could not believe that I was on a plane to Poland. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was like a big, just, it's living in the hood, and then, yeah.
Wicked, bro. And you've won the Arnold Classic even. So how was that? How was that as an experience?
I went to Hong Kong. So the first Arnold Classics I competed in was in Australia, and I think I placed 4th. That was my worst placing in Australia ever. And I was like, man, that sucks. And then one of the Asia Arm Wrestling Federation representatives was there, and he goes, I think I'm going to invite you to Arnold Classics Asia. I was like, oh, yeah. So later that year, I went to Hong Kong and competed alongside one of the world champs, and I placed 2nd at Arnold's Asia, and that's where I got to meet Arnold.
Mean.
Yeah.
Oh, bro. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, like from the humble beginnings that you end up something like that? Hey, some of the big names, who are the big names that you really look up to that you may or may not have come up against that you'd love to have an arm wrestle with? Who would be the people you would look at?
Oh, I want to have another go at John Brzezinski.
Oh, have you arm wrestled him?
I arm wrestled him in my first.
No way.
Yeah.
Now, even I know who he is, so holy crap. Wow.
So that was, about 8 years ago I arm wrestled him, and well, that was that was a completely different level of arm wrestling. But I think where I'm at now, it would be maybe a different story, but definitely a battle.
Yeah. For those that don't know, that would be like standing on stage next to Phil Heath. So far out. I didn't realise you. Yeah, that's.
Really... it'll actually be standing on stage next to Arnold or Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah. Actually. He's regarded by many as the greatest arm wrestler that's been. So
he's probably one of the only arm wrestlers that can go through each 3 of those techniques. So the 4 techniques that Aaron had mentioned, one of them's only just come to light in the last 3-4 years. That's the King's move.
Yeah.
Before that, it was just your top roll, your hook, and your press.
Yeah.
John Brzezinski was probably one of the only pullers that can execute each and every single one of those moves in a single match.
Far out. Yeah, so he can switch up on you real quick.
Real quick, and each of them being very dominant.
Far out. That's unreal, man. Fuck. Oh, what a journey, bro. It's movie material right there, man. That's really cool. Proud of you, bro. Proud of you. Very proud.
Yes,
Aaron, do you want to talk us through your history? Because I know you played a bit of sport. You're a bodybuilder for a while. You did a bit of strongman powerlifting training along the way as well. So let us know
Oh yeah.
how it happened.
Yeah, I've done a bit. I was always the runt as a kid. I was skinny because I had leukemia as a kid. I went through my treatment, and I was always the skinny little fella at school. So I played soccer for, I don't know, 11 years or something until fifth form at Tauranga Boys. We were allowed to hit the weights room, and I went to the gym there and just did kind of bro lifts, your bench and your bicycles and stuff. And it might have been timed with a bit of a growth spurt because I put on about 25 kilos that year. And that was when I quit soccer and got a couple of bodybuilding coaches to help me learn to eat. And that's kind of how I got into bodybuilding, just through them. And I trained dedicated to bodybuilding for probably 5 or 6 years. I finished up just as I met you, Nate, in the North Shore while I was at physio school. That was my last show. I think it was the county's, the NABA show. I was 21, 22. And while I was at uni, a mate of mine said that if you started a club through the university, you got funding, you got money. So we decided to start a strongman club. And the first comp we did was North Shore's Strongest Man, which I believe is still going today.
Was that with Justin?
And I got Mike Kingsnorth.
Yeah. Was that with Justin Keogh and co? Was that?
Yeah. So we all trained together at AUT in the car park. So Paul Wolf, he had never competed. That was his first comp, I think.
From there,
much smaller back then.
From there, World's Strongest Man. That's crazy. Humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And that was a good group. That was a cool group.
It was a cool group. Yeah, very cool. And we got Mike Kingsnorth with BSC come and sponsor it. And we got Monster Energy drinks to bring down their truck, and we pulled it. And we took the money from the club and we pocketed the profits. So originally I got into strongman for them pocket money when I was a poor student. And I competed in that for a couple of years. That was good fun. But my back didn't really like it. And while I was doing the strongman, I did a couple powerlifting comps. My bench press was my best lift, and that's mostly what I trained. My squat and dead were average, but I went well on the bench, and I kind of had a bit of a rut after uni with not being able to do strongman and not really enjoying the bodybuilding anymore. And yeah, my mate in the gym said it as a joke. He referred to that Over the Top movie, and he said, my arms are good, so give that a go. And I Googled it and went along to the club, and that's when I met Anton. And he trained me in his garage for a few weeks until he gave me the all good to go and train with the rest of the boys. And yeah, I've been training ever since. I love it.
You can sort of feel in your hand. And pretty much from your forearm up to your hand, you can feel like the background of all the sports that you've been into.
Right.
Yeah. It like transfers over, and you can feel it in different types of way you hold. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like because you develop in particular ways and have different strengths, but also different. Whether you're an explosive guy or you've got more of an endurance sort of. But you from the way you talk about it really interests me, because you kind of like it's almost a bit spiritual, not quite spiritual, but it's a bit more than a physical fucking push fight. You're actually you're feeling it out, and intuitively what's going on.
With my club, I tell them, the first thing I tell them, man, is close your eyes, and how do you vision an arm wrestling match? How do you vision the mechanics of it?
Holy
and
shit.
that's what it comes down to, man. It's like you can teach someone something, but if they can't see it themselves, what are they aiming for?
Yeah, right.
So yeah.
I guess like for me, that's a real big eye opener into the kind of mentality that you need to be elite at arm wrestling versus know it inside out, eat, sleep, and breathe it, and actually have a feel and an intuition into every match and how it's going to go and be able to react to things before you actually physically really, wow. Cool,
Yeah.
man. Really cool. Hey, now, look, I know, Aaron, you've done a bit of powerlifting. I know you've also thrown some big benches up recently. I think, did you hit a 260 or a 262 or something like that?
Yeah, 262.5. Yeah.
Was that in a competition or was it?
Yeah, it was record breakers down in New Plymouth.
Damn, man, that's a serious bench.
How's the preparation for a bench press like that compared to the preparation for an arm wrestle mentally?
That's where my body started coming close to redlining, man. I was training for both. I had this record breakers comp on one weekend, and then the very next weekend I had arm wrestling nationals. So I was training for both at the same time. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever do that again.
I do want to really dig into the how
do it again,
training
bud.
sort of
Keep
things.
I will do it again.
Yeah, I want to rip into the technique training and the physical training side of things. But I mean, well, I guess the question I was asking is like when you go to do a powerlifting competition, you get yourself ready for a 262 bench. I can't imagine what that'd be like, but psyching yourself up for something like that, how does that compare and contrast to mentally preparing yourself on the day of a competition for an arm wrestling competition?
I use similar techniques, man. So like Nate said, quite. Yeah, I'm more of a heart person, bro. So my thoughts are my hype. My thoughts are my hype. My thoughts are quite actually dark. Before lift, yeah, they're pretty intense. So one thing I used to envision before a bench was I'm lifting off, and as soon as that bench comes down, I picture my kids trying to lift that weight off to save my life. Yeah.
Nice, bro.
Yeah.
That'll do it. That's the motivation you need. That'll do it.
Yeah. And for arm wrestling, my grandmother was one of my biggest fans, man. She knew nothing about arm wrestling. And my first ever Australasian comp was over in Melbourne. And she came to watch it. And before that time she came to watch me, the last time I had seen her before that, she flew back to New Zealand just before I started arm wrestling to give me a growling because of the way I was living. So for her to be at that arm wrestling comp and notice some positive change in my life is another driving point for me in arm wrestling. So she passed on not long after that Australasian comp, and yeah, I feel like I carry her with me in every match I go into.
Wicked, bro.
Yeah.
Man.
So training. Let's talk like an arm wrestling individual bout. What would be the maximum sort of time length that it might go for you, or the sort of normal amount of time that a bout would last for? 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute?
I'm quite an explosive
Depends who
arm
you're
wrestler.
fighting.
Yeah.
So
Just,
I try and smash through in a second, 2 seconds.
Yeah. So do you, when you get into your gym work and your training side of things, do you train more for that as well? So you're doing either explosive power or really low rep sets like a powerlifter?
Nah, I don't. So my explosiveness is natural. I lift heavy, power, just power.
What sort of reps do you do?
So I do a lot of benching. and I'm able to convert that over to arm wrestling. Like just the other Saturday, 4 sets of 140 total 100 reps. So, yeah.
So is it 25 rep sets or average 25 rep sets?
Yeah, average 25. It went 35, 20, 25, 26.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not low reps then, no.
Nah. Yeah. So yeah, benching is one of my main exercises for arm wrestling. Arm kills, like range 10 reps. But I do this one, I don't know if you know about it, it's called 100 reps of death. So you've got the cable machine, have it in an arm kill position. I get someone to stand by the pin, and he changes the weight randomly, 10 sets, 10 reps. So you could put it on like the heaviest weight, no matter the set, do 10 reps. Put on the lightest, 10 reps. In the middle, 10 reps. Yeah, constantly changing it.
I guess that, you know, like, because in an arm wrestling match, you don't know, the power can come on and off and on and at. So that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just interested the movement patterns you're making too. I mean, all right, like I've only ever arm wrestled in the arm breaker position like that, so that's why I've done a rotator cuff. But I was naturally skinny and weak, and I did some weights and got a bit stronger, but everything was in straight lines and nothing was like that. So I never really got much stronger at arm wrestling. Whereas you're saying that your bench press and your curls and things transfer pretty well across because of the technique you're using. Do you do any specific strengthening in the movement patterns that you use for arm wrestling? Or does that all come from your arm wrestling practice?
Not in the gym. I don't do specific. Not so much specific arm wrestling movements, just like your basic forearm exercises. Hammer curls are a big one for top roll. So, like Aaron said, you know, top roll, back, cup. When we're doing arm wrestling training, yeah, that's more specific to the sport itself. But in the gym, yeah, like I'll hold the bar differently, you know. Instead of holding it like that, I'll hold it on the side. Yeah, just little things. Curls. So I'll do like your normal curl up and then twist at the end. Just adapting.
Yeah, so going across into that specific arm wrestling training, obviously there's a lot of technique stuff. What does a training session for arm wrestling out of the gym look like? What sort of things would you do? How often would you do it? Who would you work with? What sort of goals would you have in there?
Basically, so I match my members up with who I think, you know, all right, this guy's a good top roller, this guy's a good hooker. You know, they can both go into a defense, offense move. A hooker can go inside, cup, whereas the top roller will try and rotate out. So I'll get them to match up, you know, go into an arm wrestling match and try and cup them in, and then while you're cupped in, try and rotate out. Just through matches, we try and do a lot of training through actual matches. I go through that with them. I do a bit with each and every single one of them, and then by the end of it, for me to get a training, we get them to line up, and I'll go through them until they're tired, and then I'll get someone to hold me with 2 arms, and I'll have about 2 bands wrapped, get someone to pull with the 2 bands and hold, and yeah, static, so just try and hold them for a bit while they're pulling, and then finish.
Yeah, interesting, because I was wondering how it'd be to try and find it. You get a sort of decent challenge, not just from a technique perspective, but from a sort of strength and stamina perspective for you. And that's working repeatedly with people, one after the other, so you fatigue. That's adding bands, getting added extra hand to kind of give the extra resistance. And do you ever kind of allow them to get you in a compromised position before you start and then try and get out of that?
So I always teach them to start straight. Yeah, and try and get them a habit of starting straight. So in a match, You've got to start straight. Very often would I, or not very often would I let them start outside of that straight position. Sometimes I might start in a slight compromised position, but I would, I would come down with them, hold, and then bring back. But yep, in a certain way, sometimes I'll go into a compromised position, but there's a lot of tension, eh? So it's like, yeah, if anything happens in that compromised position, one of them's going to go flying off the table.
Gold. Hey, what I thought we might do is just have a quick look at your Instagram so that people can see who you are and where you're at, and they can follow you if they're interested in following your journey. So I'll just bring those up. Right, so we've got Aaron's Instagram page here. So if you want to follow Aaron in his journey and his journey to chase down the beast and get that win, but look, good journey. He's a physiotherapist too, so if you're in the area, Tauranga nowadays, if you need a good physio, Aaron's your man.
Absolutely.
A couple of photos of the boys there after the. We're going to have a look at this one, though. Got to have a look at this one.
Some good facials there.
Fuck, I'm nervous.
Oh, mate. I did a lot.
So we're strapped in this match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck, it's intense.
Taste it. Yeah. It's on a loop.
Cool, man. Now, I think there's one. There's another one I saw. I forgot. Nice. And
look how skinny you were in that photo. Oh.
I think I was hungover.
Is that your arm wrestling club there, Aaron? Right. So there's Aaron. If you want to follow the beast over here, and needs to update that because he's now the nine-time champ.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Fuck, you can see how big you are there, man. Oof. I'd run away, bro. I'll be out of there if I turned up in.
Oh, right hand. So this was the final, eh?
Oof.
Yeah.
Bang. Bang.
Yeah.
Far out. So much explosiveness there. Unreal, eh?
Yeah.
It's quite, I was going to watch it again because it's gold.
That was a long day, man.
Boom.
Yeah. That was a long day.
I think the thing, that most people wouldn't realise, like I know you and I've trained with you, etc. And fuck, you're a strong guy, man. So to watch that explosiveness just like that just kind of makes you realise, and the fact that you trained for that, and just how fucking much power, you've really got. And I guess that's why, you're the 9 times champion, Arnold champion. So, yeah. Hey, I just want to hand over to you guys just to give a big shout out to all your supporters, those people, that have helped you on your journey, those that inspire you, any sponsors, anything like that you want to do a shout out to. Floor's yours.
Let you go first, Aaron.
Oh, thank you. Oh man, where do you start? Obviously, my beautiful wife Nikki puts up with all my crap that I bring home from training. My painful elbows, giving me ice bag of frozen peas for my sore elbows. Obviously, my family, my parents, they're very supportive and loving. All the boys in the Bay of Plenty Arm Wrestling Club, everyone has something to offer, no matter what weight class they're in. It's just there's so many skilled arm wrestlers in this country, you included. Looking at you as the pinnacle of arm wrestling in this country. That's just every day I train to beat you. So I got to thank you for that as well, obviously. But yeah, it takes a village, to raise anyone, I
Arm
think.
wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of people to thank. Mike Kingsnorth, got to give a shout out to that man. He's a beautiful man. I think you're having him on the show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very supportive. He's always asking how I'm going. Helps me out with a bit of supplement here and there too. Good, very good products, PSC. So, thank you.
Yeah, man, I've definitely got a long list of supporters. First of all, I want to thank Dan, Rudolph, and Kiwi Strength for, man, he's been behind me since I first messaged him. He's just helped me out in any way possible throughout my arm wrestling, bench pressing career. Darren Farrow, who just jumped on board as a second coach for my benching. Man, I couldn't have done it without him or Dan. My family, my sister, we've been through rough patches, man, and for my family to sort of hold like glue, that's some of my big inspirations. My partner, for her hard out support, man, she's always behind me, even when she's not there. She's constantly there for me. And my kids, man, they're my why every day. Like you said, Aaron, you train every day to beat me, but for me, every day I train to beat myself. It's my battles constantly inside myself. So my biggest why are my kids, and they're my safe point. So yeah.
Awesome, bro. Hey, it's been really enlightening, and I really want to thank you guys. I really enjoyed the chat. Look, I could talk for fucking hours, and probably off here when we catch up, we'll do that. But thank you very much for coming on and joining us. And to all our people out there, stay safe, and we will catch up with you in the next day or two.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Too much, brothers.
Thank you.